know that nobody knows who this guest speaker is in this room. So, he's a rather shy and quiet individual.
Oh, another one.
And, anyway, why don't we show a little bit of love to Senator Russell Pearce.
I think the handle's still going afterwards.
Yeah.
If not, we work without it. Hey, well, first of all, thank you for letting me join you. I love Riders USA, fighters, warriors, and we have a war going on in this nation, a serious war. Those that are opposed to freedom, opposed to the constitutional liberties that our Constitution didn't give us, but was a guarantee to protect them. They're God-given rights. I love to study about the Founding Fathers. You know, I read about books that I know are accurate, because there's a lot of books out there that are not accurate. But I read about the real Thomas Jefferson, the real Benjamin Franklin, the real George Washington, Thomas Madison, Tom Paine, and you can't help but love these guys. I mean, when you get to know them, and I feel like I know them like they're part of my family. I love these guys, the sacrifices they make. We were just talking back at the table, too, about when you talk about sacrifices, a lot of veterans here. And I spent 8 years in the National Guard, and consider myself one of you. But I tell you, I look at what's happening around our country with our World War II veterans dying off. Very few left. Those stories are not being told to our youth. Amen. Our kids aren't hearing them. They're growing up with misinformation in our educational system. Things that are said that simply aren't so, or not said that need to be told. And it's disappointing. If we're not teaching our children and our relatives and our friends, nobody else will. It is our burden. We should not leave it up to the schools. We need to teach our children what freedom means. I mean, you know, I took my kids. I've got eight kids. I had 5, but we've inherited 3 more, and we've adopted them. I brought 2 of them with me. I left Tatum with her grandma because she wanted to have a girls' day out, and so they're doing whatever they're doing. But the boys give me a hard time all the time because Tatum's the youngest, and she's my princess, and the boys think she gets a little preferential treatment on occasion. But I've reminded them that if they want to be a princess, I can work that out in today's society. But although I'm old enough, I remember there only used to be 2 genders. And I still hold to that in my family, by the way. But anyway, I'm grateful to be here among you guys, gals. And I mean that with the bottom of my heart. I know some of you well, some of you better than others. And thank you for what you stand for and what you do. We need to grow this number. I was just telling Buffalo, I says, I hear all these Soder Michaels out there running up the street, and I'm thinking, somebody ought to be waving them in here and giving them an application. I mean, I would hope most of those guys are very similar in their thinking. They love the freedom of the bike. They love, you know, and kind of, I think that kind of helps breed freedom when you understand, you know, those same issues. But anyway, that list that this kind of went through up here, it's long because I'm old and I've been able to do lots of things, but I've been very blessed, and it's just like running for the legislature. It's not something I intended to do. I've always been engaged in freedom issues and in law and order. I joined the sheriff's office as a young man at 22 because I wanted to be a member of a group that was actively engaged in making life better for the good guys, you know. And then I did my career there, and I was a judge for a short time, and then the governor 5 times then called me, and I was chief deputy of the sheriff's office. Sheriff Joe, by the way, everything he knows. And then 5 times they called me and asked me to head up the governor's office of highway safety, and I did. Then we moved over to MVD, and that's kind of a cute story because he called me, and I was head of the governor's office of highway safety, and he said, right after he got his second election, he said, Russell, I need you to take over MVD. I said, wow. I said, I know nobody that likes MVD. At that time, the wait lines were 2 and 3 hours and more in some cases. In fact, I remember during that very time, there was a commercial on TV in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you guys remember it, and they called the name, and it was slow motion with cobwebs on them as the guy headed up to the counter of MVD. I thought, wow, that's the image I just love. I'd love to have that agency. Yeah. And so anyway, but then if you've seen that new movie, the one, what's the name of that movie? What? The one that has the little sloth in it, that's MVD. Anyway, just read it, huh? Yeah. And so anyway, you know, that if you've seen that movie, it kind of also remind me of it, because they're up there getting stuff done, and 1, 2, and very slow, and they have to finish everything for it because they can't wait. Kind of reminds me. So anyway, I told the governor, I said, is that something that I have a choice over? Because I already work for him. And he said, yeah, you have a choice. I said, let me visit with the wife. So I only told Luann, and she said, oh, Russell, please don't take it. I don't know anybody that likes MVD. Tell the governor you're not going to take it. So I called the governor and said, Governor, if you don't mind, I said, I am going to say no. He said, that's okay, you can say no. I got a call the next day to the governor. He said, hey, Russell, come on down to visit with me. I said, Governor, can we cut the conversation short? Are you telling me you're going to veto my no? And he said, yes. So I said, let me make a deal with you, if I could. I said, let me make changes. Let me make a difference. If I'm just a caretaker, I don't need to be there. Let me make a difference. And the things we did at MD, I thought were impressive. We cut out 3 million annual transactions. I put in Service Arizona so you could do your registration. You're already a customer. I know you. It was just for renewals. So I don't care if you're registering your underwear at Sunday night. You know, do it at home 24/7. You don't need to drive down to an MVD office just to read your best book and sit there in the afternoon. And so we cut those times down to 18 minutes on an average. And those are the things that make a difference to the public. That's who we serve. So anyway, I love doing things that make a difference. And then it came the time that there was a vacancy in my district for the legislature. And I was approached about running. I thought, you know, I'm very active in a PC for years and years here, but running wasn't what I had in mind. But I decided running is the right thing to do, because unless you're in the trenches, you can't make a difference. Unless you're willing to get into the fight, you can't make a difference. So anyway, so I did. I ran for office and got elected. To my wife's disappointment, she still will not admit today whether she's ever voted for me. But I can tell you, I'm grateful for what I've been able to do. This is a real war we have. I mean, your rights and liberties are under attack. People want more of your money to pay for things for other people instead of earning it. They think they have a right. The government thinks what you earn is just a bank account for them to do what they want to do outside of the rights and the responsibilities and the authority they have. So anyway, we've been blessed with that. But brought up, you know, this last session. And well, let me go in first of all, we have the best laws of the nation, bar none. When we passed, and I'll jump forward a little bit, and then I'll go back. But when we passed 1070, I was working with 34 states that wanted to model legislation after. So only 5 states followed through with that anyway. And that was Indiana, South Carolina, remember the 5 states, Kansas, anyway, just 5 states that even followed through with that thing. Alabama, and it set the place on fire. 2 different coalitions of legislators on their own dime came to Arizona, gave me an award and a copy of their flag and a resolution. Alabama and Kentucky, or Tennessee rather. And I was very grateful. These guys flew out on their own to tell us things. Steve King from Iowa, Congress Steve King, flew out twice to thank us for what we're doing in Arizona. You know, an earthquake to Washington, D.C. that actually the state's going to take charge again. We don't need Washington, D.C. And just like Scalia wrote, and by the way, 1070 is law today. Contrary to public opinion, would have you think the Supreme Court did not uphold it. 10 out of the 13 sections of SB 1070 were found valid and constitutional and common sense. The 3 that were not were just icing on the cake, not the meat and bones of the meat and potatoes of the bill. But Scalia just ripped the rest of the Supreme Court for not upholding all of it. He says this court is going to have to come to the realization that the United States is made up of 50 sovereign states who have constitutional rights and obligation to their citizens. He said it was embarrassing to uphold. He said if our founding fathers would have seen your vote today, he said they would have left the Constitutional Hall. They would have ran out en masse. What a great guy. Well, sorry to lose Scalia, the like-minded folks. But anyway, when we go back and we talk about some of the bills, it actually started way before. When I was the MVD director, one of the bills that I wrote was no driver's license for folks that didn't have legal presence in the United States. Novel idea. Anyway, you can't believe what happened around the state. Remember the old MVD office used to be there, part of the DPS complex there on Encanto and 19th Avenue? That line every day was out the door and around the corner of that building. If you spoke English, you were not in the majority, I guarantee you. And so anyway, when we passed that bill, we dropped 40% in driver's license issues around the state. That building became an echo chamber. We shut it down, didn't need it anymore. Nogales cut 50%. Casa Grande, we cut 45%. All across the state, because that's how many driver's licenses were issued to folks who had no business having them. All you had to do was prove legal presence, you get one. You didn't have to be a citizen, you just had to be legally in the country. And then if you got a driver's license, it expired the day your visa expired, or 5 years, whichever came first. We're never allowed to issue more than 5 years, and it expired on your visa date. So if your visa expired, your driver's license expired. So anyway, we did some good things there, and it go around. Then in the legislature, we did Prop 204, or Prop 200 in 2004. And that was a little interesting, a very simple little legislation also. Simply said, in order to register to vote, had to have proof of citizenship. I know that's a hard hurdle for some. And you had to have ID at the polls and no welfare. And Governor Brewer had just vetoed, Governor Napolitano, the one we deported. Governor Napolitano vetoed the bill just before that simply required ID at the polls. So I said, we know you're not going to sign anything weird. So we did a citizens initiative. Wow, what a lot of hard work. And we put it on the ballot, and it passed overwhelmingly. And again, Washington, D.C. was very shaken. Simple bill. Proof of citizenship to register to vote. I thought that was always the case. IDs at the polls. I mean, you have to have ID to have a library card. You have to have an ID to go to the city dump. But they didn't want you to have to show an ID to vote. So anyway, we bought. And we were sued on that one, by the way, and we won. But we kind of won in a funny way. We've been to court several times on it. I think I was sued 7 different times on Prop 200. They don't quit. 7 times. So anyway, the last time they sued, they'll always find another reason to sue. The Supreme Court said, okay, because under the Voter Rights Act, it doesn't require proof of citizenship. Well, that doesn't matter. You can always get tougher. You just can't get less, tough than statute that's passed by the feds, if it's a purview they have. So anyway, so the court said, well, we'd like you to go to the election commission first, and then if they won't give you permission, come back to us. Kind of strange. I mean, you're already before the court. So anyway, we did. We went there, and they still said, no, we think you have to, because the federal form does not require proof of citizenship. Arizona state form does. So they said, here's the deal. If you fill out a federal form, you don't have to use proof of citizenship, but if you still use the Arizona form, you do. Well, 80% of those who register in Arizona is the state form. But that 20% still, and we know they're voting, and we know they play that game, it's just the strangest decision, they think they're Solomon and cutting the baby in half, and it doesn't work. But anyway, we won technically, but it still was a silly decision on their part. But then anyway, then after that, in 2006, went to the ballot with the four initiatives were mentioned. You know, and again, Prop 100 was simple. No bond for anybody in the country illegally that commits a serious crime. It ought to be for everybody, but again, you have to incrementally go after this stuff. And the Ninth Circuit Court shot that down. They said, even though Andrew Thomas and Russell Pearce, because Andy was prosecuting Andrew, you know, he didn't write it, but he was a strong supporter of it. But anyway, they said, although Andy Thomas and Russell Pearce say illegal, they really mean brown people. That's written in their decision. It's the most asinine thing. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, I did send a few notes to the Ninth Circuit Court and referred to them and why they're called the Circus Court. So, you know, probably helps me for the next time I go before them. So anyway, it was just silly. So that's still sitting there. We need to figure out how to get that back. It was 78% of the voters passed it. A majority of every single demographic voted for those four initiatives. Every demographic. In spite of what people think, our American Latinos are as concerned about crime as we are.
Yep.
They're with us on most of these issues, but the media would have you believe otherwise. And it's disappointing and unfair to them, because they're as good of an American as you and I in most cases.
Yep.
So anyway, it's disappointing the way that we play this game with the media. So anyway, we still got to figure out how to go back with that. And I want to get a hats off to Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch has defended me in the state of Arizona in every single one of these. They have probably spent $2 million defending Arizona on these bills. We've been to the Supreme Court 4 times. You know, we've won 4 times when we get there. The only one we didn't win is the one that didn't get to the Supreme Court that the Ninth Circuit Court shut down. And they shut the others down too, but the Supreme Court took them. On Prop 100, it takes 4 justices to have a hearing on a bill or an issue. And on Prop 100, we only had 3. And so if we'd have picked up that 4th one, I'm sure we'd have won. It was a common sense, easy. I mean, under Arizona Constitution, we already have no bond for capital crimes. We have no bond for crimes against children. We have no bond if you're booked for a felony and get released on bail or OR. It's not bondable. We decide who's bondable and who's not. And it's right in line with all that because of the political nature of the left-leaning Ninth Circuit Court that was shut down because he didn't like what we were doing. Had nothing to do with the law. Clearly an abuse of authority. No different than Judge Snow, who held Sheriff Joe in contempt for enforcing the law. Not only is it in harmony with federal law, Arizona law is compelling in 1051 2B. It's compelling, says if you have a legitimate, legal contact is the word, and you believe that they're in the country illegally, you shall investigate. It doesn't say it's okay if you do. It says you shall. It's the law. And Judge Snow holds Sheriff Joe in contempt. I called Sheriff Joe when this happened. I said, you've got to say no. You've got to tell the judge to pack sand. You've got to go to jail. Yeah, you know, that's how you got to stand tall. I said, Russ, I'm too old to go to jail. I said, Sheriff, you probably know who runs the jail. You. I said, no, that I know who runs. I'll talk to your folks. I'll make sure you get a tent with a view. You got to go to jail. You'll be a national hero. You can't just stop short of this fight. It's worth going to jail. Our founders died for what we have. If you go to jail today, what do? You take your teddy bear and your best book, catch up on reading and sleep. You know, it's not a bad place. We don't let it be a bad place. So anyway, he didn't do that, but he's fought the fight. He's been a good guy up there.
Did anybody get an American?
We made a lot of progress because of it. So anyway, so we're fighting these fights, and so again, we passed those 4 initiatives, and Prop 400. I want to talk to that because he mentioned Prop 300 carefully too. And by the way, English is the official language. I just sent an email to the Board of Supervisors again because I told them I'm tired of people having to push one. If you want an interpreter, bring one. Taxpayers shouldn't pay for it. They've never done that until recent years. Enough is enough. English official language. In fact, read the Constitution. It says you must promote English. You cannot do anything to take away from English. You can't abuse or get upset with anybody that refuses to do anything but English. But all official documents must be in English. And yet you're still on your government phones pushing one if you want to continue in English. It's in violation of the Arizona Constitution. So anyway, I did send in, I got an email back from him and said, oh, Russell, we'll look at that. It's interesting. Well, I've heard nothing back. That was about 3 months ago that I have to. But anyway, the fight continues, and they have to know you're mad when they don't do what's right, or they'll continue to be wusses on this whole thing and not stand up for what we've asked them to stand up for. They take an oath of office. That office compels them to do what's right. Keep their oath. Honor the Constitution. Honor the laws of the land. Protect the citizens. Do you know that you have a right to sue when they don't? And it's really done. The Constitution requires them to protect you from anyone who breaks the law. That's including those that cross our borders illegally. It is the law. It is a constitutional requirement of theirs. And yet, they seem to get away with not doing it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Today, if you want to enforce the law, you're the bad guy. You know, I've got enough friends and family. I really don't care. And I'll stand with those who need to be stood with. I'm tired of people running over rights and liberties. Tired of people defending bad guys over good guys. It's just not right. So the fight continues. So anyway, that's another. But then on Prop 300, and like you see, you read it very, very well. It says no in-state tuition if you're not in the country legally. Now again, DACA kids are not here legally. It's an unconstitutional order by this corrupt president. The statute, the USC, still says they're illegal. So that's why it's written. If you're not here under the federal law legally, you cannot get in-state tuition, grants, scholarships, or taxpayer dollars to subsidize you directly or indirectly. ABOR did it no matter what. Then, fortunately, in Arizona, the appellate court ruled unanimously it's illegal. The Arizona Supreme Court ruled unanimously it's illegal, you can't do it, violates the law. They continue to do it for a while. So I got after Mark Brnovich, your Attorney General, and I said, you've got to sue them. He dilly-dallied and continued to play. I said, either you sue him or I will. Then the Arizona Republic got a hold of him, and he said, I will not be bullied by Russell Pearce. He will not tell me what to do. Okay, the day before the deadline was up, he filed. But he filed badly. The only reason we won that is because of a suit by Tom Horn before he left office. Because the suit Brnovich filed, he did two things. He filed that suit based on the legal constitutional right of ABOR, Arizona Board of Regents. That's to set policy, tuition. And he coupled it with the illegal act of in-state tuition for illegal aliens. You're going to lose at the outset. That suit's been had before Cromco ran it years ago. And they said that's their decision. And you have no right to sue them over that. And so anyway, so he put the two together. And then he didn't use a phrase that has to be used that is when one part of a law is found not guilty, the rest of it is still good. He didn't use the words for that. And I said, so I met with him over breakfast, and I said, Mark, you didn't even use the words. I said, if you lose it, you lose it all. That was badly done. You merged an illegal act with the legal act. You've set yourself up for failure. He said, no, I think we can win. I said, no, you won't. And he did. It was thrown out. And I said, you didn't even use the phrase for separation of these two phrases, so one would be held. He said, oh, look at that. Still did nothing about it. So I'm really not a happy man with Mark Brnovich. I think he's very weak in his position. But anyway, because he's not suing again, on Senate Bill 1217 we stopped. And thanks for your help and other help. I got a hold of the Speaker of the House, Rusty Bowers. I said, Rusty, you've got to hold the bill. It's a direct violation law. Rusty held the bill. It passed out of the Senate. But Rusty held the bill, so it didn't go anywhere. So what does ABOR do? They took the exact language from SB 1270, which was illegal, and applied it. And they're doing it today. They've come with a middle ground. They don't give complete in-state tuition, but they give them a huge discount of what you charge citizens that come here from other states. So we treat them better than we do citizens again. So anyway, I've asked him to sue. He's not doing that. What I am doing is working with Judicial Watch. We're getting ready to do a FOIA, that's a free information between Heather Carter, Udall, and the Arizona Board of Regents. I'd like to do the Chamber of Commerce, but they're private. You can't do a FOIA with them. But on the other side you can. If they received emails from them, you can. I just can't do it against the Chamber. So we're getting ready to file that, where we'll see what communications took place, because they've modeled it after comments from the Arizona Chamber of Corruption that simply said we have wiggle room in the law. There is no wiggle room in the law. It's very, very clear. And the Arizona Supreme Court made it clear that's the case. So what they've tried to do is invent a brand new middle ground. They said, well, this really isn't subsidized, and this is the extra cost. Well, that's not true, and I've got the Joint Legislative Budget Committee doing a research piece on it right now to see the real cost of education. Because we've always understood that in-state tuition is subsidized. Out-of-state tuition is the full cost. Well, now all of a sudden, the out-of-state tuition is not full cost. This middle ground is. So again, it's another game they're playing. So the fight goes on. I'm still in the fight. And by the way, that's you know what? There are people that get upset with Trump. I'm grateful for a man who speaks his mind. He's one of us and says what has to be said. That's why we elected him. And I'm tired of people saying, oh, I just wish he'd shut up. I'm grateful he doesn't. And I'm grateful that he tweets, because he's never going to get the message out with regular media. He's never going to do it. I mean, it is the illegal pact for the Democrat parties, the media, you know? And so I'm grateful for that man. Look what he's done. Just quickly. Some of the best judicial appointments, 150 at this point. And who uses for reference? The Federalists. It's one of the few organizations made up of attorneys that have read the Constitution. So he's done that. Supreme Court justice, more taxes, less regulation, trying to secure a border with an inept, corrupt Congress. You know, boy, the list is really long. I'm old, and so sometimes I have to pause to remember where I'm headed with this stuff. But if you look what he's done, in spite of the attack every day on this man, I don't know what's going to survive that. And I don't know what other man elected. And I love Tom Cruise, and actually was a Tom Cruise guy at first because of his history as a constitutional, being there consistently. Didn't know Trump that well. But boy, there's not another president who could have done what he's done. I'm not sure another president, anybody else out there could have won in the general, you know, with all the attacks and the Hillary Clinton buying the DNC and the false narratives that continue to put out. I don't know how it's going to survive, let alone accomplish what he's accomplished. I'm grateful for Donald Trump, and I stand with Donald Trump. Perfect man? No, but show me the perfect man around here, and I'd sure like to shake that hand. The only perfect man I've ever known or read about is Jesus Christ, and I don't think the rest of us quite make it that far. My wife will tell you I'm a long way away. But anyway, we talked about, I brought two of my grandkids here, Ethan and Wyatt, which are good kids. I love them. Like I say, I have 5 kids that I raised, and I've got 3 that we've adopted that we're raising them. And I didn't bring Tatum because she was so happy to have just a girl's day out. But I'm one of 13, a blended family. My wife's one of 12, a blended family. And so one of the things we try real hard to do is make sure all of our family are registered to vote. I don't know anyone in my family that goes left. If they do, I'll go down and rebuild their house if they got a hauler that goes left. You know, there's only one way to stand, and that's on the Constitution and the freedoms enshrined in that Constitution to be guaranteed by those we elect. And if they don't, replace them, remove them. I don't care if they're Republican, Independent, or Democrat. If they fail to keep their honest word and violate their oath of office, they've got to be removed from office. Can't have it. That is what keeps us as a republic. And again, I get so mad at somebody, I shouldn't use the word mad, my wife tells me. I'm less than pleased with folks who I hear use the word democracy. That means they don't even know what kind of a government they have. You can't elect people to office that don't know what kind of a government they have and how they're supposed to conduct themselves as leaders in representing you. We're a republic for a good reason. One of the terms always used, the difference between a republic and a democracy is it's like having two wolves and a sheep vote on what they're going to have for dinner. Well, the sheep's going to be dinner. A republic, it protects the minorities as well as the majorities. Designed that way. Our founders are so bright in putting together this government. You know, when they did that, they could have easily written themselves in with great power. They could have done that. They chose. Never before in the history of the world, when a group has set themselves apart and fought for the freedom, have they divested themselves in all authority and power. Because they knew what freedom was about. They came here for freedom. Yeah. They knew how important it was religious freedom. And there is no phrase anywhere in the Constitution about separation of church and state. It was to keep government out of your religious business and to protect it. In fact, you know the Bible was used as a textbook for the first 150 years of this country. Now if you bring one to school, they want to throw you out. It's just amazing. We've slipped in as badly. Anyway, as I head off in directions, after 2006, another bill that I wrote then was the employer sanctions bill. And it was kind of funny how we got there, because I kept getting beat up by Ben Miranda and others about, well, you're always picking on the illegal. You never go after the businesses. You never go. I said, it's already a felony to hire them under federal law. I said, I'll make you a deal. If you'll vote for the bill, I'll make one that they'll love. You know, and there's mandatory E-Verify in this state. Mandatory, but not enough penalties. Only 20% have ever signed up for it. It's mandatory to use E-Verify if you have a business for your hires. In addition to that, if you knowingly hire someone to stay in the country illegally, first offense, 10-day suspension, second offense, revocation, not to do business in the state again. Well, that's not being enforced. Sheriff Joe tried for a while, and he was doing a great job of going after many of the businesses, but it still was never really enforced the way it should have been enforced. What I'm doing now, just so you know, I'm writing an initiative for the city of Payson that I hope they'll get to the series, put it on, that'll make it not only, because it's already the law, sanctuary cities are illegal, but they have the unwritten thing where they're not really enforcing it. So this one will make it a misdemeanor for the officers if they don't enforce it. It'll make it removal from office if the politicians don't enforce it fully, to the full extent of the law. It'll give them a fine if there's a business that's hiring illegally. They'll have a fine for letting the business stay in the business. The business license will be revoked on a very first offense, not a second offense. Enough is enough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be one they're not going to like. And the chamber, I'm sure, will be very unhappy. But if you follow the law, there's nothing to worry about. If you use E-Verify, it says we'll give you credit the fact that you did your job. You're not going to be charged. If you're trying to use the tools that are available to you, you won't be charged. I mean, I don't know how much more fair you can be. All we're asking you is follow the law, make an honest effort. If somebody cheats and fools you, you're not going to get in trouble for that. You have to knowingly do it. It's kind of like the Second Amendment, shall not infringe. Some people have trouble with some of the English language. You know? It's pretty simple. What knowingly means is pretty simple what shall not infringe means. So anyway, that also went to the Supreme Court, by the way. And we had success there 5-3. Okay, and then we came along 1070. And the world fell apart with 1070. And they were mad about the others. I sued on everyone. But 1070, you thought the end of the world was coming for these folks. You know, mean and nasty, and I was a racist, and I've been called everything about. In fact, you know, I was recalled over it. George Soros and Randy Perez, successful in a conservative district. Remember me, I was rather shocked, disappointed. Didn't take me out of the fight, though. But what's interesting, though, this whole thing, you know, is 1070 passed. It's upheld as constitutional by the Supreme Court. 10 of the 13 sections were held constitutionally. 10 of the 13 sections. The key components of 1070 were upheld. Section 2B, it's 11 1051, and then Section 2B, which is the first two sections, A and B, is compelling language. It's compelling. It says if you have a legal contact and believe the individual is not in the country illegally, you shall investigate. Well, City of Phoenix has a policy that basically neuters that. And they have violated 1070 in 6 areas. Another meeting I had with Mark Brnovich. And I said, they're in violation of the law, because he wrote them a legal opinion and said, I think they're okay. They violated in 6 places. I can show him. Mark Spencer and I worked on this. We've pushed him. Nothing. So, again, Judicial Watch to the rescue. We're figuring out how to sue the City of Phoenix. They're in violation of the law.
Can we join you?
Huh?
Can we join the suit?
I hope so. You guys have already signed one thing, and we have that. Mark Spencer has that list for a bunch of you to sign as stepping up. So whatever it takes, but yes, we'll use whatever we can. I have several legislators willing to do it. Royce Floyd, the treasurer, he's with you guys. He says, boy, whatever it takes, I'll even give some money, whatever it takes. But we got to stop these folks. If the city of Tucson passes theirs, which is clearly a sanctuary, making them a sanctuary city, they'll be not only in violation of the law, they'll be in violation of what is Senate Bill 1487 that was passed 2 years ago, that says if you are in violation of Arizona law and refuse to retreat from that law, no revenue sharing. They get half of their revenue from revenue sharing for both the sales tax and property tax. And it says you won't get it back. Even if you change, you won't get it back. We'll reinsure you for next year, but we'll redistribute that money to everybody else. You will not get it. And I'm going to use that law too. And Judicial Watch and I will be going after the city of Tucson, which is already a sanctuary city. They just have not written the policy that allows us to break their kneecaps. But that war is real. It's, you know, there's so much. In fact, I just brought up some of my papers. I know I was short. And I didn't want to get dark before I'm done. Cause I get kind of like one of those people's not real well. I get up in the middle of the night and I write a letter to the President of the United States. May or may not mail it, but I need to say something. I'm frustrated. And worried about my republic. I'm worried about the freedoms being protected that I've enjoyed and that I see us losing for my children and grandchildren to enjoy. It really does concern me. I get really, really upset with it in a very passionate way. My wife constantly is doing the pat on the head saying, just calm down, slow down. I have a hard time doing that. Yes, please. In fact, that's the best way to do it, get into things you guys want to talk about. Are the questions anything I can answer before I continue?
Can you discuss the red flag laws?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. It's on my notes. First of all, we killed it last session, thank heaven. It's out there pushing again. There's 17 states that have some form of a red flag law. They're all written a little different. It is nothing but a confiscation scheme. There has to be due process. First of all, and I've been a law enforcement most of my life. And I believe there are bad guys who don't get certain rights that good guys get. When it comes to the Second Amendment, I struggle. I'm conflicted. Because I'm not sure I have a right to take those guns from anybody. From anybody. The best defense against a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And when seconds count, it only takes minutes for police to get there. And I've been there. I've got 2 boys that just both retired from law enforcement. Yeah. It reminds me of my age all the time when they do that. I love freedom. Red flag law is one of the most offensive things in the world with a great title. Well, what about, we already have laws. If you've been petitioned for mental health, you can't get one. If you're in the country illegally, you're not supposed to be able to get one. If you committed a felony and are prohibited, you're not supposed to get one. The only thing these laws do is come after good guys. Bad guys are called bad guys because they're bad guys. They don't follow the law. I remember when I did Senate Bill 1108, the same year got very little attention because of the 1070, but passed it the same year of the 1070. I had several law enforcement guys come to me and said, Russell, boy, you really want to go after that? And I said, let me tell you a quick story. Back when we just went for a concealed weapon, you had to have a permit, government permission. I had a big battle with Frank Milstead outside of the hearing room in the House. Dave Carson was carrying the bill. Dave Carson from Prescott at the time. And they said, this is a cop killer bill. I said, you got to pass a background check. You have to have firearms training. Why would you say that? And he kept on. So knowing a little more than he wished I knew, he was dating one of the dispatchers for DPS. I said, you know, Ralph, not everybody's as lucky as your sweetheart. I know she carries a gun in her purse. I said, but because she has a get out of jail free card from Frank Milstead, it's okay though, right? But none of the other good citizens have that same privilege. And I said, if you testify against that bill, I'm going to get up and testify about your permission from your girlfriend carrying a gun, but you don't think anybody else should. He walked out of the room, left, did not testify. You know, I'm tired of these people that hide think they're better than you. This government was intended to protect your liberties. Policemen are just an augment to that. Are they necessary? Absolutely. But they're not going to protect you in most cases. They're going to come after the fact. Every mass shooting in the United States is being committed in a no-gun zone, a gun-free zone. Wow. I do know that it's a really good place for these folks, and it's called jail. No smoking, no guns. You know, I mean, it's everything they want. Free food. I mean, it's a Democrat environment. Yeah. So anyway, it's going again. I have a resolution that I'm trying to get a resolution committee together, both for the Maricopa County and for the state GOP this January, to run a resolution that calls them out for anybody that's in favor of that red flag law. It's a resolution. They need to vote on it overwhelmingly and say enough is enough. Not in my neighborhood, not in Arizona. So anyway, that they're pushing it again. I will do everything I can to stop it with people like you, patriots like you. We have to engage. We can stop it. I'm convinced we can stop it. I mean, you got some weak-kneed Republicans that will join, including your governor, which caved for Ed before they even made a demand.
Wallace Ducey?
Yeah, I've heard some other names too, but yeah. But anyway, I'm disappointed constantly when we have these folks that carry the banner that I'm a member of this party for several reasons. One is, I think we're the greatest hope for freedom. And when I have those folks that remember this party that disappoint me, it even hurts worse. I expect it from the left. I don't expect it from this guys. And just like for years, they put up with McCain. And now with the flake, I mean, these guys, okay, I'd beat them with a pulp if I could. I tell you, I am so tired of that. And I've written a letter to the Salt Lake paper on Romney. I was not very kind. I've done the same thing for Flake. Those people, really such a disappointment. The Gang of Eight, the other things, that they've done. McCain involved in a bill that was really an attack on freedom of speech. Certain groups weren't allowed to participate with their PACs and efforts and stuff, including pro-life groups and stuff. So anyway, they continue down that road. And it's disappointing. Fortunately, Romney's in office, the other two are gone. All they can do is, one can't talk, the other one, all they can do is talk. And Romney still has a vote. It's disappointing. But again, I come here and I get bolstered because of groups like you, because I know there are still folks in the fight. And you have to be vigilant. Any other questions? I'm sorry, can't you invite.
Senator Pearce, in regards to the Arbor ruling granting discounted tuition to illegal aliens at our colleges, where does it now sit? Does it look like there's going to be a legislative way to do this, or are they going to need to be sued?
They're going to have to be sued. Your legislature are weak-kneed. I've just talked to 2 legislators this week about letting ABOR get away with that. Neither one sounded like they were going to do much about it. but they agreed. I said, they're breaking the law. You guys think it's okay? You hold the purse strings. There are things you can do, you must do, just like when the courts get out of hand. You can't remove a judge very easily, but boy, you can sure make life uncomfortable for them when you take their funding away. You know, you got to fight with whatever tool you have. But I've talked to ABOR. I've threatened. In fact, I'm sure that I'll never get any breaks for any other tuition. I've told them they all belong in jail. And I've made it very clear to them. I know 3 or 4 very well. I told them I would put you in jail if I could. You are breaking the law. You belong in jail. You belong civilly, personally liable for the millions of dollars you're costing the taxpayers. You have no right to do it. It's in violation of the law. You know, and they continue to do it.
So,
again.
So at this point, are we waiting for some action from Judicial Watch, because they're evidently the only entity that's moving and able, right?
I just got a call from Jim Peterson last week that said, don't give up on me, Russell. I still want to do something. We're working on it. But what they've done is made it a lot harder. And so that's why I went to Joint Legislative Budget Committee, asked them for a paper on the actual cost of higher ed. If that comes back, if they mess it up, it'll be another beating. But if they come back right, then it gives us all the tools we need to go after ABOR. If they show us any cost being absorbed by the taxpayer for this middle ground they pick, they'll be sued. And we're looking at FOIA now to get some other information, so yeah. So we're not giving up. It's just what's been with us on everything. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us what your opinion is on the assayer, if he should be resigned from the office?
He's not convicted.
Right.
So my issue on that is no. Is it going to be difficult for him to function? Yes. Can he win re-election with this? No. Do I think Paul's a bad guy? She asked, if you didn't hear, she asked about the assessor, Maricopa County Assessor Paul Peterson, whether he ought to be forced from office or resign. Again, we'd ask him to resign because I think he needs to get together. Let me just give the facts you don't hear from the media. First of all, he's been sued 3 different ways. The one's the federal lawsuit or charges. And that is with the compact. The compact with the Marshall Islands is they cannot come here for the sole purpose of adoption. Well, that burden's on them. But also, I'm sure there's a connection if you're bringing here for that. But it's that sole purpose. So if they're coming here and have a dinner and then go for adoption, there's no sole purpose. So that's a loophole. But some of the things that concern me is I'm not real familiar with why Utah filed theirs. But in Arizona, Mark Brnovich filed because of welfare fraud access. And I don't have the deal. If he did that, shame on him. If they sign people up in no business, because I've gone after the illegal age vet, and they, by the way, are still signing them up illegally, but nobody goes after them. And then they use the term human trafficking, and it's not. That's altogether a different connotation, But we have all the illegals doing human trafficking. They all get bond or release or just sent back. But you've got Peterson still in jail. He's still in jail, and and they kind of do like they did with some of Trump's people. I mean, they raided the place, they bring the SWAT team in. These aren't violent crimes. All you have to do is contact their attorney or contact them and say, hey, I got a summons where you need to show up. They'd have been there. The showboating that they do and the abuse that they do, absolutely inappropriate. Now, again, I'll wait for the courts to decide. He's got his own battles. I know Paul well enough to know that I just have a hard time believing anything bad. I can tell you the life in the Marshall Islands is tough. These kids are being brought here, given wonderful homes, and a life they probably would have never had. If he had brought those kids here for abortion, they'd have been praising him probably. As long as you're willing to kill a baby, you're okay. But if you want to save it, you've stepped across the line. So I'm pretty offended over the whole thing. But again, I don't know the detail to defend Paul entirely. If they broke the law, that'll come out. If he did, I hope he's exonerated quickly. But he ought to resign because he can't do his job and have what he has to fight hanging over him. And what'll happen is if he decides to run again, he has filed, he'll lose that race. With those, it's like a trial. You throw mud on the walls, you know it's not true. The attorneys throw a lot of mud, they know it's not true, but some of it'll stick. And with what's going on, he will not survive an election. And we know that. So you give another office up to the Democrats if he persists on running. So, and for that reason, also he ought to consider what he's doing. Answer it. My 2 cents worth. And guys, I can give as much bad advice as anybody. So if you want advice, just go and ask. But any other question? Anything else that you're concerned about going on that I might have some insight on? Well, thank you.
How are we going to stop George Soros?
How are we going to what?
Homeland Security told us last year that they can go after people like George Soros calling your money, but they haven't done that either.
You know, when he's allowed to give to certain PACs independent expenditures and stuff like that, there's not much you can do until the laws are changed. And again, have a hard time telling a person they can't use their money, even the bad guys. You want to use your money for something, you have a right to do that. We all know what George Soros is about, the most anti-American, hateful about America and freedom and republic. You know, I mean, this socialism movement is on a roll. Boy, if you're not worried, you ought to be. So yeah, stopping these guys, it's up to us as individuals to recognize again. It's like when as a law enforcement, you get all these kids come tell you, boy, Deputy Pearce, I'm really being a good guy now. Well, tell me who you're running around with and I'll tell you what you're doing. So you have to, you know, by association, you have to know a little bit about these folks. So I don't care how good they tell you, if they're hanging with George Soros, you don't need anything to do with them. And there's other names that go with that, but yeah, he's a threat to this country. He's after the Secretary of States and the Attorney Generals and the county attorneys in the states. He knows that's where you control things. And those are the 3 most powerful offices that you can have: the AG, the county attorney, and the Secretary of State. They could. In fact, we made the Attorney General part of the most powerful position in America because the independence they had. They filed suit. They joined the suits all over. They sue states. They join the 16, 17, 18 of them, go after a state, and they go after a term that they use, which is class action suits, almost impossible to defend, and it's dangerous. And so you're right, you got to make sure you have a good AG, where they join the bad guys. You can't compete with the kind of resources of money and law firms. They're the largest law firms in the country.
With Tucson having the likelihood of becoming a bona fide sanctuary city, is Judicial Watch going to jump into that fray as well?
We're talking about it, and I think so. There's a resource, they're one of the good guys, did he say? But their resource stretched thin. Almost all of the bad stuff you've got on Hillary and some of the deep state, the swamp, comes from them. They've uncovered that information, would have been uncovered otherwise. They have just done a marvelous job. And so their resources stretched thin, but they're on our side on this issue. We've had conversations on it. I think that one's across the line enough that we can go right after them. So yeah, I think. The problem is standing. The courts give you a hard time on whether you have right for standing. Well, Arizona, the citizens have a right, but the courts will sometimes say, well, you don't really have a right unless you're personally harmed. If they're using my tax dollars, I'm personally harmed. You know, and so this is a fight we have with them constantly of them deciding whether you have standing or not. We do have standing. They think we have standing. There's a couple of documents that I've just sent them that shows that a citizen has standing. And so, I mean, I think we'll go after them. I think they're confident that they will, but until it's passed. And now, I will mention one thing. Because the courts have also, because until you're harmed, you can't go after them to get an injunction to stop it. Well, California, believe it or not, had a law that they wrote actually in the 1800s, but they revised it in 1974, I think, back when they still had some Americans. And anyway, it provides a civil process to have an injunction filed when they're doing things that will be harmful. And I'm writing that currently. Ledge Council is drafting the legislation for me. I've strengthened a little bit from what California, because again, I don't trust that. So I'm trying to rearrange it a little bit so I know it can be. Anytime passed law, the good guys can use and the bad guys can use. So I'm trying to write it in a manner that doesn't just open the floodgates for them, but still allows we, the citizens, to take action when a government entity is doing things that is harmful or destructive or costly.
Russell,
I'm sorry.
you you've got a lot of experience down at the state capitol with Kristen Sinema, or Senator Sinema. She seems to be voting an awful lot with Trump on a lot of his votes. Do you think that she has actually moved
No.
more towards the center?
Hey, can you hear what he's asked? You want to know, Senator Sinema tends to be voting a lot with Trump. Her own party, in fact, threatened to censor her. And you want to know if she's made a real honest turn to the right? And I'm telling you, no. I've had many a conversation with Kirsten Sinema. I know her well. In fact, I have a great big beautiful fella in my office that she gave me for treating her so nicely. Doesn't mean I did favors for her, I just treated her with respect. But anyway, she told me she's much more comfortable in the Communist Party. And she registered as a communist. Most people don't remember that. That didn't work so well for her. Then she registered with the Green Party. That didn't work with her so well. So then she registered as a Democrat and got elected. I can tell you one bill she had that nobody seems to want to use against her. And she ran it twice, actually. She ran a bill, and it was really going after the Minutemen. But her bill said anybody that's not law enforcement that reports an illegal alien commits a Class 5 felony with mandatory jail time. I can show you the bill anytime you guys want a copy of it. But anyway, she liked to play. And I talked to her about that before she actually left the Senate. I said, first I said, you've done some terrible things. See, I'm smarter. I'm smarter now. I'm not doing stuff like that anymore. So they'll tell you she is smarter now. But she has not changed her colors, but she's smart. She's a senator from Arizona, so she's going to play the road down the middle a little bit. And they elected her in the first place because nobody had the good proper campaigning against her, I believe. But she's on her way for re-election, I guarantee you. She's already got TV stuff going, and they're going to spend a lot of money. In fact, this next election, there's going to be tons of money spent there. It's a swing state. There's going to be tons of money spent in Arizona to get rid of Republicans and to help Democrats. And there'll be an ebb and flow from that. There'll be a cascading effect from that. It'll affect every office down. And when I say that, I say that about office you ought to be worried about. I work for Royce Floyd, the Maricopa County Treasurer. I've never worked for a guy that cares more about freedom and liberty and limited government, and I'm grateful for that. And he's probably running into risk too. He's got a Democrat that wears a National Guard uniform, looks really nice, all his medals, that is as far left as you could get. And these elections are they're going to be a lot of money spent. Royce just saved a bunch of people's homes, including the veteran who had to take on the sheriff, who was doing some terrible things with auctioning off homes. This one veteran, he owed $221. He had till the 30th of June to pay. The sheriff auctioned his home off 10 days before that, June 20th. He had the money paid for, sold his $36,000 home for the $200 due. Well, we took the sheriff on. We've stopped that. It should have been reversed, the sale. He didn't do it. We went to court. The sale was reversed. The veteran's is still in his home. He's going to get his home back. But these are why you got to have the right people in office. Otherwise, who's going to stand up for right and wrong? Common sense, freedom, the things that mean so much to us. If you don't elect the right people, the warriors won't be there. Even the good guys, if they're not warriors, they'll let you down. They won't take on the fights. And I appreciate people like Royce who says, you don't like what I'm doing? I don't like me. I'm okay with that.